All right, Eisenhower, main Monty, video number 2, round 2 fight. This is coming off the video for the main boxes that I just did. So now this one's going to be to explain the panels, and I'll throw in the light bar. It's not too crazy, just a couple things I'll point out, but sort of piggybacking off of what we've done before. So let's get after this bad boy. So I have it broken down. So as usual, there's a lot of stuff even with these panels. So I went ahead and broke it down to north and south. I sent these over as separate files for routing and all that. Obviously, it would be a heck of a lot of parts to just send all as one. So that's why I broke it apart. Now, the north and south, some people are weird. They like to describe the north and south based on how you're standing and looking at it. I don't like to do that. The north side is the side of the sign that faces north, El Norte. So if you're standing if you're standing as this guy is right here, he's kind of pale. But if you're standing there at Eisenhower, the north side will be facing Yucca Valley. What's up, Mr. Bolt? And the south side will obviously be facing towards the Rancho Mirage, the river, and or Old Mexico way. So that's kind of how I have it. So as if you're like standing there or you're looking at a Google Earth. So south side faces south, north side faces north. It doesn't have anything to do with like how you're facing it or anything like that. So anyway, so that's it. So it's just going to be 5 panels per side. So I'm just going to stick with the north. So let's just do the lay of the land. But the north and south are just mirrored. So they're not like technically identical, but they're just mirrored. So I'm just going to use the north as an example. So, but the lay of the land will be similar for both. So let's get after it. So you got your 09 here. And because there's so many parts, I just arbitrarily broke it up into verts and horizontals. So, but these are just the box parts for your different panels. So you have panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, panel 5. So you have your verts, you have your horizontals, and then you'll have your skin panels. Because panel 1 hangs off, like I showed you in the last video, you'll have its other little buddy skin that goes on the back side of 1. Otherwise, these are just single-sided panels. Keep the weight down, keep the cost down. And then you'll have jiggies, which are all the same. Now, instead of breaking all these jigs into panels 1 through whatever, you're just going to have generic jigs. And then for all of it, except for the backers of these will have B's on them. That's for the backside. The panels, we'll go over that, but the panels are asymmetrical. There's a backside and a front side, a face and a back. But for the most part, everything else is the same, except when you get to these two, I'll show you where these are special for panel 1 on the back side, 1B. So look for these. These are necessary for each panel or for each side. But you'll see that with the south, it's all the same. It's just labeled differently, but it's all the same. So anyway, so let's get back to it here. So just to go over, these are not too crazy. Again, there's just a lot of moving parts. I just want to point out some stuff, but these ones are just going to be weld up 090 to jiggies and you're done. So these will be relatively lightweight. I have here sort of the layouts in the middle of the PDF that you guys will get. So essentially the face of all 5 are identical, minus of course the mounting holes for the letters, but that doesn't really matter per se. I already have it all figured out. But how the faces are laid out with the holes and everything, those are all the same. So 1 through 5 are typical, but the backers for 2 through 5 are typical. But like I said, because 1 hangs off and you can see the inside or the back side in the, kind of face in public here, this will be how much hangs off. There is a backside skin, which means jigs are different and things like that. So that's why I said be looking out for these guys here. That is for 1, it's on the back side. It's an extendo jig. That way we can get those 5/16 RivNuts that I talked to you about before on the Eisenhower mains, the mains boxes. This is where all those 5/16 come into play. So again, like I said, these are sort of like the Agua Sequi, cultural museum signs that'll just kind of slide on and then we'll bolt them on. So again, nothing too crazy. You're just going to weld together the frames. And then these guys will have sort of a spacing in between here. It's a 1/2 inch space that kind of breaks up the seams and it makes it, purposely have that. So the way we're going to do that is you're going to have these specialized seam pieces. So you'll find these These will be on the left-hand side because that's where you pass the Dutchie. And so you're just going to go ahead and put these guys, and these guys are going to get, or girls or they, so they're going to get riveted directly to the outside. So you can see like here, when you're looking at this face frame, you're just going to go ahead and rivet this on to the one to the left side of it. And then the next guy, 4 will have that, and 3 will have that, and then 2 will have that. Obviously 1 does not have any of that because it's just going to be sticking off. So that's it. So that's kind of how that works. I don't think it's necessary to lords these. I have plenty of Clecos. Just make sure that they're clean on the backside, that there's no flanges or flares or anything from routing or anything, and then just make sure that that you kind of Cleco it together to make sure it's held together. And I think you can just go through and rivet this to the outside of this, and we're done. And then that'll take care of that. So for the backer side, like I said, you have your front and your back. You can see where the 2x2 posts that are sticking out of the mains from the last video are going to, this is where these guys are going to slide on and sit. I also gave you some left to right action on those. Now, it's important though that these get assembled in a certain order when it goes to install time. Plus, that also means it's going to be important to fabricate them. So let me get to this part here. So for my 80s heads, Choose Your Own Adventure. I had them all. They were great books. So for you can choose your own adventure here. So because panel 1 essentially sticks out, you can see where this blue line is. This blue line is where the skin is. So you can see panel 1, for as much weight as it will have, is only mounting this much onto the sign, which is basically structurally, I think they use the technical term is rubbish. So the fact that you can only have this much holding this panel on with wind and people leaning against it, or I don't know, whatever happens. So essentially, number 1 is going to have to get by with some help from its friend, number 2. So number 2 will have skewers that you're going to permanently put in. So 3, 4, and 5 are essentially identical boxes, other than the faces have different holes for letters. But otherwise, 1 and 2 are really all you got to worry about. But structurally, you build them the same. But then number 2, you're going to go ahead and, where's our cut list? What's up, Edgar? You're going to take your 86s, and you got 3 for the south and 3 for the north. And you're just going to slide them into number 2, and you're just going to go ahead and tack them in here, here, and here, and let them poke out. Now, this is where you need to get with install, because my name is Paul. It's between you all. And you are going to decide whether you slide this together, and you can go ahead and RivNut it, because I have RivNuts here and here, and you can go ahead and put those in, bolt it together, and then you can permanently tack this together. And that way you'll have one unit like this. Now, just so you know, that unit will be 111 by 83. It's not massive. It's a little less than your table. It's not going to be huge. They're only 6 inches wide. This brings me back to this. You'll see where there is RivNuts up top and bottom. So to rewind, go back to where you're riveting these together. When you put these together, you're going to go ahead and RivNut through both the panel frame and here. And then that gives a 5/16 RivNut availability for a bolt to bring these together. Once install has mounted each panel onto the main boxes, you can reach in through the top and you can reach in through the bottom and suck these together with bolts. And then you'll have your 5 bolts, or your 3 bolts up top and your 3 bolts on the bottom. So that just reminded me. So when you bring 1 onto 2, you can bolt it together and tack it together and skin it. And then you'll have 1 unit here in the shop. And that's just how it'll get prepped and transported. Or install can take these separately. Now, if that's the case, then make sure that these get masked off during prep, so that way they don't get coated with text coat and stuff, because they have to be clean for sliding on. But that being said, install will just take this over with skewers and then take 1. But the idea is that 1 and 2 do need to be assembled together before putting onto the main box, because 1 can't slide onto 2 because the pegs stick out. So these need to be put together and then slid onto these 3 pegs sticking out of the mains boxes. So you'll lift this as one unit and stick it on. Also, this is a note for install, 1 and 2 must be put on first, because what you're going to want to do is this skin, right? So all of these boxes do not have skin on the back side. They only have skin on the front side to save weight, plus it's not needed. But that means that when we skin the back side of 1, it's actually going to be poking out an 09. So when you bring this skin with box 1 onto the mains here, it's actually going to hook, because this 09 will be poking out the back a little bit, and then there's no skin on any of these boxes. So you're going to want to kind of start with 1 and 2. Well, actually 1, but technically it needs 2 to be put on there. So you're going to bring this in, you're going to slide it onto your 3 pegs, and you're going to go bang, and then I have adjustment left and right, and you're going to tuck that seam, or the skin is going to tuck up against, and that's going to make it look clean from the back side. At which point you go ahead and throw in your 5/16, and then you can start bringing in your buddies. Now what I would do is maybe keep these loose, give yourself a little bit of play, bring these in. You can get these setting on the pegs, right? Then you can kind of bring this back over, bring this over, bring this over, and then you'll have your 5/16 top and bottom here, like that. You'll have your 5/16 to bring together, and then we all come together, hold hands, and then you can work your way through and just bolt and nail this whole thing down. And then once it's nailed down, you're good to go. So that's pretty much it. Just wanted to point out that that's kind of how it has to be, is you're gonna have to make a decision on 1 and 2. So ultimately, fabrication wise, fabricate all the panels. Don't worry about it. Put all the boxes or the frames together. Lords together all your weld together all your frames. And then you can then decide once this is all like made, you can see how big it is and decide if you want to mess around with that. Then you can lords on all your faces. Once your faces are all lords on, at which point you're good to go, send out to paint. You'll lords on the backside, this guy here. What I did is you're just gonna clamp and bend this. I went ahead and made this so that way it's not like wavy. This way, this will keep it as kind of straight and strong, because this is gonna be unsupported. And I don't really like when skin is unsupported like that. So I went ahead and you're just gonna bend this up at a 90, and then that's just gonna give some strength when it's inside the sign here. You can see where the bends will be. And so instead of this sort of being unsupported and flappy, it's going to give it some strength. So that's 1 and 2, the decision you got to make there. Once you get everything all skinned and everything's out the paint, that's awesome. Also, we're going to talk about the venting. Now, if you take this back to the Spotlight 29 monument, we kind of did this on the bottom skins. We took some mesh, and then you guys tack the mesh to the inside of the skins. So your top skins are just closed up. Of course they are. We don't want rain or anything. But the bottom side, what you're going to do is that you'll have these little reference kiss marks. We're bringing in some 1/8" hole perf. Just need a 48 by 48 inch, a 4x. You're going to throw that in the stomp shear. Get yourself these guys here, and then you're just going to line them up and tack them to the inside of the skins. And then that's going to give us a nice ventilation along the entire bottom of the panels. And then theoretically that'll go up. Obviously these are not going to be like, silicone sealed to the frame. So there'll be plenty of room for air to escape out. Like, air leaks will make it out. So hopefully that's going to help us with overall ventilation. So keep that in mind here. It's a little different than we normally do, but I'm borrowing that from the Spotlight sign. So I think that's it. Just make up your frames. 1 and 2, make the decision how that's going to work, whether it gets put together in the field or not. At which point, once these are all done and they come back for like assembly, install and fab can then make the choice whether or not you want to put the letters on each of these panels that can, or whether they all just go over separately, easier to transport, and then you guys can put install can just install the letters once they get there. But the holes will be in the skins, everything will be lined up, everything will be good to go. So I think that's it for the panels for south and north. And I think that's all you need to know for his jigs and stuff. So let's just take this and we'll break over to the light bar. So the light bar is just a laminated sort of put together seams overlapping kind of puzzle that you guys have done. We did this for Loma Linda. So you're going to have the top side is the ones in red here. And then the bottom side is here. And then the faces, when they come together, will make the lamination. So you can see where the staggered seams of the bottom will meet in the middle of the red. And then the seam of this red will meet in the middle here. And then et cetera, et cetera. So when you're done, you'll lords together the faces and you'll have your contiguous top and bottom. Then you'll have your end cap here. That you can go ahead and lords in if you want, or tack it, whatever you think works. That goes here. And then you're going to have your end cap here, the little baby version of that. And he's going to go in there. And I have a little notch here, F to the face. And then this is the back. So once that's all done, then you'll also have these little seam pieces. You'll just lords those. Look out for these little squares here. Those guys will go, oh, yeah, let's talk about the lay of the land. Yeah, you've got your north and your south sides. That's all in one file here. So you'll have all your north, south. So you'll have your little seam pieces there. This over here, you got your seam pieces, north, south. Look for all that. Now I got your tabs. Now I made sure that these are 4-bar. They're a little bit separate, a little bit different. And then I have 3/8 macrolon. Again, this looks very similar. These joints, open and close with the heat. So that way we have a little bit of room there. And hopefully it's not too much buckling. So you're just going to lords those seam pieces. Once all this is together, lords the seam pieces. Then you should have one contiguous piece. The other thing, you collect the power towards this side over here where the little bendy notch is. That will be where power collects on both of those. So just look out for that little power hole there. And then also, this is just a little dangler piece. This does not connect to the actual sign itself. So you can see here, this is the polycarbonate for this part that kind of wraps around the panels. So like this right here is the panel right here. So this part here gives that standoff. This little part just attaches, but it doesn't have any sort of wire or anything, or it doesn't actually attach to the sign. So don't lose this little floater part guy, and that little floater part guy tucks in right there. I already have all your holes and everything ready to go. So this should be pretty straightforward assembly. You can see where the polycarb kind of ends early here. That ends right with the, right here. Yeah. So that's where this part kind of wraps around. That's where your polycarb ends there. So you just kind of have this step down polycarb. So you just need to get the leash for this guy to come around and meet up with the leash for this guy. You might be able to just have a little bit of a leash and then permanently connect it to these LEDs. And then when you take these polycarbs out, this will just sort of dangle by a leash. You can rubber band it together or something. But then when it comes time to install it, install can just undo it and just have it dangle there. And then they will attach it to the inside of the bar and then go ahead and attach the bar over it, and it should be good to go. So a little bit of thinking ahead there on install. So you'll have to install that before you install the bar. But otherwise, that's the light bar. Again, we've already kind of done something like it, but that should be pretty straightforward. Again, if you have any questions, hit me up. But I think that's it for panels, and that should be it for the whole shebang. So good luck. We're all counting on you.
Check the technique. Check the technique.